East Carson City is where a buyer has to get honest. Not with the agent, not with the lender, with themselves. Because this part of Carson City can bring up a very real question. Are you buying for image, budget, space, access, or everyday function?
Some buyers want the historic feeling of the West Side. Others care most about Reno access, which makes North Carson more logical. For people who keep looking towards Carson Valley, South Carson can become that bridge. East Carson enters the conversation just a little bit differently.
This side of town often makes buyers think more practically about money, usability, commute patterns, monthly payment, and how much house they can really get without chasing the prettiest version of Carson City. That doesn't mean that East Carson is compromised. It means that the value here shows up in a different way.
Today, we're going deeper into East Carson City. We're going to talk about affordability, function, buyer expectations, comparison points like Dayton, practical cost of living, property taxes, commute considerations, and how the East William Street project fits into the broader access conversation.
Before we get too far, comment with the one thing that you refuse to sacrifice in your next home. Space, location, payment, charm, garage, yard, or convenience. That answer usually tells you whether East Carson should be part of your search. Now let's begin with the truth that buyers sometimes like to avoid.
Every home search has an image attached to it. People imagine the street, they picture the house, a certain kind of neighborhood that starts to form in their mind before they even start to tour anything. Then the budget shows up. That is when the search gets a little bit more real.
East Carson is often where buyers start separating what looks ideal from what actually works for them. A home might not have the historic curb appeal that someone pictured at the beginning. The location might feel more practical than emotional. A property could offer better usability, stronger affordability, or easier access than the most charming option that's across town.
For the right buyer, the trade-off is not disappointing. It's actually smart. The problem happens when people judge East Carson by the wrong standard. If you compare it to the West Side only through charm, you may miss what this part of town can offer. When you compare it through function, the conversation becomes more useful. That shift matters because not every buyer needs the same kind of value.
One person wants older architecture, mature streets, and downtown character. Another needs a home that fits their payment, handles their daily life, and gives them room to breathe. East Carson often speaks to that second buyer. That buyer might be a first-time homeowner who's trying to stay realistic. A move-up buyer could be looking for a more usable space that's not pushing them too far into a higher price tier.
Investors may care about access, rent logic, future demand, and whether the numbers make sense. Someone relocating to Carson City might simply want a practical landing point while they learn the region. Those are all valid reasons to look east. Now, let's talk about affordability. Most buyers do not need to be told that price matters. They need help understanding what price actually means when the full cost of ownership comes into full view.
Totally. A list price can be helpful, but the monthly picture carries more weight after closing. Mortgage payment, property taxes, insurance, utilities, maintenance, commuting costs, repairs, and lifestyle convenience all belong in the same conversation. East Carson gives buyers a chance to think about those pieces with less emotion clouding that decision.
Right, and that can be actually useful. A charming home in another part of Carson City may stretch the budget. Something newer, larger, or better located for your routine could still make more sense for you. Even if it does not match the original vision, price is not the only measure of value.
The better question is whether the home supports your life without creating unnecessary financial pressure. East Carson might become the most attractive when that answer starts to matter more than the image does. That's especially true for buyers who are comparing Carson City with Dayton already. Dayton can enter the search when buyers want more affordability, more space, or a different price point nearby. That comparison's not wrong, but it does need context.
You may find a property outside Carson City that looks appealing on paper. After factoring in the commute, services, taxes, errands, school logistics, work patterns, and how often you need to be in Carson City, the answer can change. East Carson gives some buyers a way to stay in Carson City while still keeping the search grounded around value.
That position can be important. You're not necessarily choosing between nice and affordable. The real decision might be between two different versions of practicality. One option gives you Carson City access with more function-driven life. Another might offer a lower price or more room further out. Neither choice is automatically better, but your schedule, budget, and long-term plans need to decide.
Now, Carson City can also appeal to people who care about unusable space. Sometimes buyers get caught up in finishes. A kitchen can look beautiful and still fail in the way that your family wants to live. Fancy staging does not solve a lack of storage. Square footage means very little if the layout is an absolute waste.
East Carson should be evaluated through the lens of use. Can that driveway handle your needs? Does the garage matter more than a historic street? Would a practical yard serve your life better than a more charming exterior? How does the floor plan work on a normal morning? Those questions might sound less exciting than talking about character, but they become very important after you move in.
Function has a way of becoming more valuable over time. The feature you thought mattered most during the showing may fade into the background. Meanwhile, the layout, parking, storage, access, the monthly payment becomes part of every week. East Carson is where buyers should take those details seriously. This side of town rewards clear priorities.
When you know what you need the home to do, the search becomes easier. When the goal is only to find something that looks impressive, East Carson might not get a fair chance. And that's why this video exists. Every part of Carson City needs to be understood by what it really does well.
East Carson's strength is not trying to imitate another side of town. Its value comes from practicality, access, affordability, and everyday usability. Now let's talk about neighborhood feel. East Carson is not one uniform experience. Some pockets can feel residential and straightforward, while others may sit closer to routes, services, commercial activity, or daily movement.
A home might offer a good price because its location, condition, age, or the surrounding area context. Another property might surprise buyers by living better than the photos suggest. That's why you can't reduce East Carson to one quick option. The details matter. Street position matters, access points matter, nearby services matter.
The relationship between the home and your daily routine matters more than the general label. A buyer who wants a quiet should evaluate the specific pockets very carefully. Someone who values convenience may feel differently about closer activity to routes. Both reactions can be very reasonable.
But the mistake is assuming that every buyer will experience the same area in the same way. East Carson has to be judged through your life, not someone else's preferences. Now, let's bring in the East William Street project. Infrastructure and road projects might not sound exciting, but they can affect how people experience an area.
The East William Street project is part of a broader conversation around access, utilities, and movement through the side of Carson City. For buyers, that matters because roads and services shape the daily life. A project like this should not be treated as a promise that every nearby property will become more valuable. That is not how smart real estate decisions are made. The better approach is to understand how infrastructure may be affected by convenience, routes, traffic patterns, access, and long-term usability.
If you are considering East Carson, this type of project belongs in the background of your decision. It helps you understand the area is not static. Changes to road, utilities, and access can influence how a part of town functions over time. For some buyers, that creates confidence. Others might want to know how construction, traffic, or corridor changes can affect their routine before they commit, and both concerns are totally valid.
A smart buyer does not ignore the growth. They also do not buy based on hype. The property still needs to make sense today. Future improvements can add context, but they should not replace due diligence. That is especially true in East Carson, where the practical side of the decision already is so important.
Now, let's talk about cost of living more directly. Nevada's no state income tax can be attractive, especially if you're a buyer who's relocating from a higher tax state. That advantage is totally real, but you still have to look beyond one tax benefit.
Carson City buyers should think about property taxes, sales tax, insurance, utilities, maintenance, transportation costs, and the actual condition of the home. The combined sales tax rate for Carson City is listed at 7.6% for 2026. For a qualifying primary residence, Nevada has a property tax cap structure that can only help limit annual increases on the tax bill.
And those facts are helpful, but they don't make every single home affordable. A property with manageable purchase price can still become expensive if it needs work. Daily driving can also change the real cost of a location, and insurance and maintenance costs can look really different depending on the age of a home, its condition, roof, systems, and its property type.
This is why East Carson buyers should look at the whole financial picture. You're not only asking whether you can afford the home, you need to ask whether the home lets you comfortably live in it after you own it. The question can lead some buyers east. It can also help others realize another area might fit better. Either answer is useful. The goal is clarity, not forcing one part of town to fit everyone.
Around this point, I want you to comment with what you would rather have: a lower monthly payment, more usable space, or a more prestigious location. That answer changes the way that you should compare East Carson with other parts of town.
Now, let's compare East Carson to the rest of the Carson City series. West Carson is the emotional and historic conversation. North Carson is the access convenience conversation for people moving towards Reno. South Carson works as the bridge between Carson City and Carson Valley. East Carson is the practical value conversation. Each one solves a different problem. That is why Carson City cannot be treated like one simple market.
A buyer who loves West Carson may not understand why someone else chooses East. But the person who chooses East might care less about charm because their payment, layout, yard, garage, or their commute matters more to them. That doesn't make the decision less elevated. It makes it more honest.
Real estate should match your actual life. A home that impresses people but stresses your budget may not be an actual win. Something that feels practical and gives you room to live may become the better long-term choice. East Carson asks buyers to define that value for themselves.
That is not always easy. People often feel pressure to choose the area that sounds the best. The smarter move is choosing the location that supports your goals. Now, who is East Carson best for? Budget-conscious buyers should understand this side before they stretch too far elsewhere.
First-time home buyers may find that East Carson gives them a more realistic way to enter the Carson City market. Move-up buyers who want more function without chasing the highest in lifestyle might also see an opportunity here. Investors can evaluate this area through price, access, usability, services, and the type of demand that comes from practical housing needs.
Relocators should include East Carson if they want to understand the full range of Carson City instead of just the most polished or historic areas. This side might also fit buyers who care more about how a home really works in their day-to-day life more than how it looks in a lifestyle reel.
That does not mean every Carson City home is a smart buy. Condition still matters. Pricing needs to be compared carefully. Location context should be understood before you get emotionally attached. Future infrastructure work can be helpful context, but the property itself has to carry the decision.
That's right. A practical area still requires a smart purchase. Value doesn't mean ignoring any red flags that come up. And affordability should never become an excuse to skip your due diligence. If the price looks good, ask why. When the home offers more space, make sure that that location still supports your life. A property that seems like a deal should be evaluated for resale, condition, layout, and overall long-term fit.
East Carson rewards buyers who do the work up front. Now, let's talk about the emotional side of choosing a practical area. Some buyers worry that choosing function means that they're actually settling. That is not always true. Settling is buying something that does not serve you because you feel out of options. A strategic choice is a little bit different.
If East Carson gives you the payment, space, access, and the lifestyle balance you need, that can be a really strong decision. The fact that it may not be the most romantic part of town doesn't make it less valid. Your home should reduce your stress, not create it. And for some buyers, a practical location with better affordability is exactly what allows them to enjoy their life after closing. That matters a lot.
You don't want to buy the house that looks best to everyone else that feels squeezed every month. You want the home that works when the bills arrive, the week gets busy, and the life returns to normal. East Carson often becomes appealing when buyers start thinking that way.
Absolutely. Now, if you're thinking of comparing East Carson with Dayton, be thoughtful here. Dayton might give buyers different price points or space options. East Carson could keep you closer to Carson City services and routines. The right answer to Dayton or Carson City depends on where you work, how often you need Carson City access, and what monthly payment feels comfortable. Also, whether the added drive is worth the trade-off.
Do not make that decision from a map alone. Drive the routes, compare the services, look at actual homes in both places. Think through a normal week before deciding what option is truly more affordable. Sometimes a lower list price further out is better move, and other times staying closer to Carson City creates more value than the price difference actually suggests.
That's why this comparison deserves a real conversation. East Carson shouldn't be presented as a fallback option. It might actually be the best fit for buyers who know exactly what they value. Now, sellers in East Carson need to understand this positioning too. The market shouldn't pretend the area is something that it's not. A stronger strategy explains why the home works for people.
Maybe the property offers good access. The layout could be functional, a usable yard, garage, parking, condition, or a price point that matters more than the dramatic lifestyle pitch. Buyers in this lane want often clarity. They want to understand value. They want to see how properties fits their budget and their actual daily routine. A listing that only talks about generic features can really miss the true real story.
East Carson homes should be marketed around practical advantages when those advantages are present. The kind of honesty builds trust. It also helps the right buyer recognize why the home deserves attention. For buyers, that lesson is similar. Don't apologize to anyone for wanting function.
A real estate decision does not have to impress everyone. It has to support you. If your budget matters most, own that. When the space is a priority, be honest about it. Should access carry more weight than charm? Let the search reflect that. A clear buyer makes better decisions. East Carson is one of the areas where clarity matters most.
Now, let's bring this back to a bigger picture. Carson City has different personalities depending on which direction you go. The west side offers history and charm. North Carson gives many buyers useful regional access. South Carson connects the city more naturally to the valley.
East Carson brings a practical question to the surface. What do you actually need the home to do? That question may not sound glamorous. It is one of the most important questions of this entire search. A beautiful home that fails your budget is not a good fit. Great photos do not fix a bad commute, and an impressive address cannot make up for the layout that frustrates your daily life.
Practical choices can create more peace than emotional ones when the right buyer is making them. East Carson is a place that buyers should take seriously. Before you choose a home here, walk through your priorities without trying to sound impressive. Really look at your monthly comfort zone.
Think about how much space you need. Consider the routes you use most, study the condition of the home, compare the location against Dayton, Central Carson City, and the other sides of town. If they're actually on your list, ask whether the property works for your actual life, not just the imagined version of it.
That level of honesty can protect you from overbuying, underthinking, or chasing the wrong kind of value for yourself. East Carson might not be right for every single buyer, but for the person who wants function, affordability, access, and still have that clear path into Carson City, it really does deserve a serious look. This area can be misunderstood when people only focus on the image.
Once you understand the practical side of the decision, East Carson becomes much more interesting. I'm Jill Larson with the Larson Miller Group.
And I'm Marette Miller. We help buyers, sellers, move-up homeowners, and investors make confident real estate decisions throughout Carson City and all of Northern Nevada. If you're comparing East Carson with Dayton, West Carson, North Carson, South Carson, or a totally different part of the region, reach out and we can talk through which area really fits your budget, your lifestyle, and your long-term plans.
Subscribe for the next Carson City breakdown because every side of town tells a different story when you understand what buyers are really choosing.